The coffee shop buzzed with morning energy as I settled into my usual corner table, laptop open and notepad ready. Seattle in April meant rain tapping against the windows, creating that perfect background ambiance for productivity. I'd been coming to this same spot every Saturday for months, working on what my boss mockingly called my little side project. My name is Victoria Bennett, though most people call me Tori. For the past 4 years, I'd been working as a marketing specialist at Green Tech Solutions, a mid-sized tech company that specialized in sustainable energy applications. It wasn't a terrible job by any means. Decent pay, standard benefits, and the occasional free pizza during crunch periods. But it wasn't mine. Another cappuccino, Tori? Maya, the barista who knew my order by heart, approached with a warm smile. That would be perfect, thanks. I glanced up from my business plan, rubbing my tired eyes. I'd been developing software that helped small businesses streamline their supply chains with a focus on environmental impact. It was something I genuinely believed in. Companies needed affordable ways to reduce their carbon footprint while improving efficiency. The problem was, no one at GreenTech took me seriously, especially not my boss, Richard Harrington. Just 3 weeks ago, during my annual review, I'd mentioned my entrepreneurial aspirations. I'm actually working on developing my own software company, I'd said, trying to sound confident despite the nervousness fluttering in my stomach. Richard had looked at me over his rimless glasses, a smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. Then he laughed, not a small chuckle, but a hearty laugh that made his shoulders shake. Victoria, I appreciate ambition, but let's be realistic here. Do you have any idea how competitive the tech industry is? How many startups fail within the first year? It takes more than a good idea and enthusiasm. He leaned back in his ergonomic chair. Focus on your career here. There's a senior position opening up next quarter. That's a sure thing. Your little software dream? Not so much. The memory still stung. I took a sip of my fresh cappuccino, letting the warmth and caffeine fuel my determination. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend, Allison. How's the Saturday hustle going? Still on for dinner tonight? I smiled and typed back a quick, making progress. See you at 7. Allison had been my rock through this journey. She believed in me when others didn't. My parents, while supportive in theory, had that concerned look whenever I talked about leaving my stable job. Just be careful, honey, my mom would say. There's nothing wrong with a steady paycheck. As the rain intensified outside, I dove deeper into my business plan. I'd been saving aggressively for 2 years, living in a modest apartment and cutting expenses wherever possible. I had enough runway to support myself for 8 months without income if necessary. It wasn't ideal, but it was enough to take the leap. By noon, I'd finalized my pitch deck for a meeting with a potential investor next week. This wasn't just any investor. Jessica Winters was known for backing women in tech, and she'd expressed interest after we connected at a networking event last month. I packed up my things as the coffee shop filled with the weekend lunch crowd. Walking home through the drizzle, I rehearsed my pitch out loud, earning curious glances from passers-by shielded under colorful umbrellas. Monday morning arrived with its usual gray Seattle mist. I straightened my blazer before stepping into the GreenTech office, my resignation letter tucked neatly in my bag. My stomach twisted with a mixture of anxiety and excitement. Morning, Victoria, Richard called out as I passed his office. I need those campaign analytics by noon. They're already in your inbox, I replied, and I was hoping to speak with you when you have a moment. He waved me in without looking up from his computer. What's up? I closed the door behind me and took a seat across from his desk. I've decided to pursue my own venture full-time, I said, sliding the envelope across to him. This is my 2 weeks' notice. Richard finally looked up, surprise evident on his face. Then, that same smirk appeared. So you're actually going through with it? Your software thing? I nodded. Yes, I've secured a meeting with a potential investor, and I've completed all the groundwork. It's time. He leaned back, studying me with an expression that mixed amusement with something else. Concern, perhaps? Well, I can't say I'm not disappointed to lose you on the team, but... He shrugged. I wish you luck. You'll need it in this market. Thank you, I said simply, rising from my chair. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing any doubt. As I walked back to my desk, a weight lifted from my shoulders. For better or worse, I had taken the first real step. There was no turning back now. That evening, as I stared at my apartment ceiling, unable to sleep from the adrenaline still coursing through my veins, my phone lit up with an email notification. Jessica Winters wanted to move our meeting up to tomorrow morning. The real journey was about to begin. So you're saying you can reduce supply chain carbon emissions by 32% while improving delivery efficiency? Jessica Winters leaned forward, her piercing blue eyes focused intently on my presentation. For most small to medium-sized businesses? Yes, I replied, fighting to keep my voice steady. We sat in a sleek conference room in downtown Seattle, rain streaking down the floor-to-ceiling windows behind her. Our initial testing with 3 local businesses showed results ranging from 27% to 36%. Jessica nodded slowly, making notes on her tablet. At 48, she had built a reputation as one of the shrewdest investors in the Pacific Northwest, with a particular interest in sustainability-focused startups. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and she wore a simple, yet obviously expensive charcoal suit. "And your competition?" she asked. "The major players focus on large corporations, with complex systems and price points to match. We're targeting businesses that can't afford those solutions, but still want to optimize their environmental impact. Our software is streamlined, user-friendly, and priced accessibly." 2 hours later, I stepped out of the building in a daze, hardly noticing the rain soaking through my blazer. Jessica had agreed to invest $300,000 in my company, Green Chain Solutions, in exchange for a 15% stake. It was happening. It was actually happening. I called Allison immediately. "She said yes," I practically shouted into the phone. "Jessica is in." "I knew it." Allison's voice came through, excited but not surprised. "This calls for celebration. Dinner at my place tonight. I'm cooking." The next 2 weeks flew by in a blur. I finished my time at GreenTech, training my replacement and tying up loose ends. Richard maintained his skeptical attitude, offering backhanded compliments like, "Well, at least you'll learn something from the experience when you decide to come back to corporate life." On my last day, the team threw a small goodbye party with cupcakes and awkward well wishes. Richard shook my hand firmly. "Keep in touch, Victoria. You never know when you might need a fallback option." I smiled politely. "I'll be sure to send you our launch announcement." The following Monday, I woke up to the strange realization that I didn't have to commute to GreenTech. Instead, I headed to the small office space I'd leased in a co-working building. It wasn't much, just a private room with enough space for myself and the 2 part-time developers I'd hired with Jessica's investment. Marcus was a recent computer science graduate with a passion for environmental causes, and Deidre was a mid-career programmer looking for more meaningful work after years at a major tech company. They believed in Green Chain's mission, and their enthusiasm was infectious. "I've mapped out the user interface redesign," Deidre said, pointing to wireframes on her screen during our first full team meeting. "Based on the feedback from our beta testers, we need to simplify the reporting dashboard." Marcus nodded. "And I've been working on improving the algorithm that calculates carbon offset opportunities. I think we can make it even more accurate." As May turned to June, we worked relentlessly. I handled everything from marketing strategies to client outreach to making coffee runs. There were nights I stayed until midnight, fine-tuning our business model or preparing for investor updates. Some mornings, I woke up wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. But then we landed our first paying client, a local food delivery service committed to reducing their environmental impact. The owner signed up after a 30-minute demo. "This is exactly what we've been looking for," she said. "The big-name solutions were way beyond our budget, but we still want to do our part for the planet." One client became 5, then 12. Each success validated our concept, but we were still operating in the red, burning through investment money faster than revenue was coming in. The stress began to take its toll. I lost weight, developed insomnia, and canceled plans with friends so often that they stopped asking. One rainy July evening, I sat alone in our office, staring at our financial projections with growing anxiety. We needed more clients, faster. The runway was shortening. My phone rang. It was Jessica. "How are things progressing?" she asked, skipping the pleasantries. We've signed 15 clients and the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive, I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. But we're not growing as quickly as projected. Victoria. Jessica's voice was direct but not unkind. This is normal. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I took a deep breath. I've been thinking about approaching some medium-sized regional businesses directly. Companies that align with our values but might not have found us yet. Good. Be aggressive. Your product works. I've seen the client testimonials. But having a good product isn't enough. You need to get it in front of the right people. After we hung up, I pulled up LinkedIn and began searching for contacts at companies that matched our ideal client profile. One name caught my eye. Sarah Jeffries, Sustainability Director at Northwest Natural Foods, a growing organic food distributor. We had mutual connections. I crafted a careful message explaining what GreenChain offered and asking for just 15 minutes of her time. Then I sent similar messages to 20 other potential clients. By the time I left the office that night, 3 had already responded with interest. The next morning, I woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. This was the push we needed. As I showered and dressed, I mentally rehearsed my pitch, refining it for each specific company. When I arrived at the office, Marcus and Deidre were already there, heads together over a coding problem. "Morning, boss," Marcus called out. "We had an idea about the carbon calculation feature." I smiled at the word, boss. It still felt strange to hear. "Let's hear it," I said, setting down my bag. "And then I've got some news about our outreach strategy." For the first time in weeks, I felt the spark of certainty that I'd made the right choice. Whatever happened next, I was all in. The August heatwave hit Seattle with unexpected ferocity. Our co-working space's air conditioning struggled to keep up, and we'd taken to working with the blinds drawn against the relentless sun. But despite the sweltering conditions, GreenChain was heating up in the best possible way. Northwest Natural Foods wants to roll out our system across their entire distribution network, I announced to Marcus and Deidre one Thursday morning, barely containing my excitement. "This is our biggest contract yet." Deidre high-fived Marcus before turning to me. "That's going to mean some serious scaling. Are we ready for that?" It was a valid question. In the 3 months since leaving GreenTech, we'd grown to serve 28 clients, but most were small operations. Northwest Natural Foods would more than double our user base overnight. "We'll need to be," I replied. "I'm bringing in 2 more developers next week." Jessica connected me with some talent, and the interviews went well. What I didn't mention was how I'd maxed out my personal credit card to cover the additional salaries until the new contract payments started flowing. The stress of maintaining a confident front while privately worrying about finances was becoming my daily companion. Later that afternoon, I stepped out for a much-needed coffee break. The local cafe 2 blocks down had become my thinking spot when the office walls felt too close. As I waited in line, scanning emails on my phone, a familiar voice broke through my concentration. "Victoria, is that you?" I looked up to find Richard Harrington, my former boss, standing in front of me. He looked exactly the same. Crisp button-down shirt, perfectly knotted tie, that air of corporate confidence. "Richard, hi." I straightened my posture instinctively. "How are you?" "Can't complain. Mind if I join you for a minute? I'm curious to hear how your venture is going." Part of me wanted to make an excuse, but professional curiosity won out. We grabbed our coffees and found a small table near the window. "So," he began, stirring his Americano, "has reality set in yet about the startup world?" I smiled tightly. "It has. It's challenging, unpredictable, and the most fulfilling work I've ever done." His eyebrows raised slightly. "Really? Last I heard through the grapevine, you were still trying to find your footing." The grapevine. Of course. Seattle's tech community was smaller than it seemed. "We've found our footing," I replied evenly. "In fact, we just landed a contract with Northwest Natural Foods for their entire distribution network." That caught his attention. Northwest Natural was a respected name in the region, known for their commitment to sustainability. "Impressive," he admitted, leaning back. "But sustaining growth is the real challenge. At GreenTech, we've expanded the marketing department since you left, brought in some heavy hitters from Silicon Valley." "That's great," I said, genuinely meaning it. I had friends still working there. The senior position I mentioned went to Brad Peterson. You remember him from the Denver office? I nodded, feeling a twist of what might have been regret in another life. That position could have been mine. Regular hours, predictable advancement, company health insurance. How's he doing? I asked. Richard shrugged. Adequate. Not as creative as you were, if I'm being honest. We chatted for a few more minutes about mutual acquaintances before he glanced at his watch. Better head back. But listen, Victoria, I'm actually glad I ran into you. His tone shifted to something more serious. The tech landscape can change overnight. If things don't work out with your startup, my door is always open. We could use someone with your talents. I thanked him politely, but as I walked back to my office, his words echoed in my mind. Was it a genuine offer or just another way of suggesting he expected me to fail? When I returned, Marcus was excitedly showing Deidre something on his screen. "Tori, you've got to see this," he called out. "I think I've solved the batch processing issue we've been struggling with." I pushed thoughts of Richard aside and focused on the code Marcus had written. This was where I belonged now, building something that mattered, with people who shared my vision. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. The new developers, Elena and Josh, integrated smoothly into our team. We upgraded our servers, refined our algorithms, and prepared for the Northwest Natural Foods implementation. Then, disaster struck. I was in the middle of a client call when Marcus burst into my office, face pale. "We need to talk. Now," he whispered urgently. I quickly wrapped up the call and turned to him. "What's wrong?" "The latest update we pushed has a critical bug. It's causing miscalculations in the carbon offset reports for all clients." My stomach dropped. How bad? Bad enough that the numbers they're seeing are significantly off. Some companies might be making business decisions based on those reports. For the next 72 hours, our team worked around the clock to identify, fix, and test a solution. I personally called each client to explain the situation, promising transparency and a quick resolution. Most were understanding, but 2 threatened to cancel their contracts. On the 3rd day, running on caffeine and determination, we finally deployed the fix. Every system came back online correctly, and the reports were accurate again. But the damage to our reputation needed addressing. I decided to turn this crisis into an opportunity. We developed a more robust testing protocol, added additional security measures, and created a comprehensive incident response plan. Then, I wrote a detailed case study about the experience, sharing it with all our clients and on our website. "We believe in transparency," I wrote. "Here's what went wrong, how we fixed it, and what we've learned to ensure it never happens again." The response surprised me. Not only did we retain all our clients, but the case study generated interest from companies impressed by our honesty. 2 new clients signed on the following week, citing our transparent handling of the crisis as a key factor in their decision. By September, GreenChain had grown to a team of 8, serving 42 clients across the Pacific Northwest. We moved to a larger office space, still modest, but with room to grow. For the first time, we were consistently in the black, with a healthy projection for the next quarter. One evening, as I was locking up the office, my phone buzzed with a LinkedIn notification. Richard Harrington had viewed my profile. Curious, I checked his page and was surprised to see his status had changed. He was no longer with Green Tech Solutions. I wondered what had happened, but put it out of my mind. I had a dinner to get to, a rare evening off to celebrate Allison's promotion. As I stepped out into the cool September air, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The path had been harder than I'd imagined, with higher highs and lower lows. But standing on my own 2 feet, building something meaningful, nothing could compare to that feeling. Little did I know that Richard Harrington would soon re-enter my life in a way I never could have predicted. The email arrived on a crisp October morning, nearly 6 months to the day since I'd left Green Tech. I almost spilled my coffee when I saw the sender, Richard Harrington. Subject: Potential Opportunity. Victoria, I hope this message finds you well. I've been following GreenChain's progress with interest. Your recent case study on crisis management was particularly impressive. I find myself at a career crossroads and would appreciate the opportunity to discuss how my experience might benefit your growing team. Would you be available for coffee this week? Regards, Richard. I read it 3 times, trying to process what was happening. Richard Harrington, the man who had laughed at my entrepreneurial aspirations, was essentially asking for a job. I showed the email to Deidre, who had become something of a confidant. "You're kidding," she said, eyes widening. "The guy who told you you'd fail is now trying to join your company? That's some sweet irony." "I'm still not sure that's what he's asking," I replied, though it certainly seemed that way. "Maybe he just wants to network." "Only one way to find out," Deidre shrugged. "The question is, would you even consider hiring him?" It was a good question. Richard had significant experience in the tech industry and connections that could benefit GreenChain. But his management style had been part of what drove me away from GreenTech in the first place. I decided to hear him out and suggested meeting at the same cafe where we'd had our chance encounter months ago. When I arrived the following day, Richard was already there, looking different than I remembered. His usual crisp appearance seemed slightly rumpled, and the confident posture was subdued. "Victoria, thank you for meeting me," he said, standing to greet me. "Of course. It's good to see you, Richard." Once we had our coffees, he got straight to the point. "I'm sure you're wondering why I reached out. The truth is, GreenTech was acquired by Meridian Systems last month. They brought in their own management team, and several of us were let go." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said sincerely. "Corporate acquisitions could be brutal." He waved off my sympathy. It was a wake-up call. I'd gotten too comfortable, too set in my ways. He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. "Watching what you've built with GreenChain in just 6 months? It's impressive. The innovation, the client-focused approach, the values-driven mission. It's the kind of company I'd like to be part of at this stage in my career." I tried to keep my expression neutral. "What exactly are you proposing, Richard?" "I'm interested in joining GreenChain in a business development capacity. My network in the industry could help you expand beyond the Pacific Northwest. I have connections with sustainability directors at major companies across the country." It was a compelling pitch, I had to admit. We were indeed planning to expand our reach in the coming year. "Why GreenChain specifically?" I asked. "With your experience, you could join any number of established companies." Richard looked down at his coffee before meeting my eyes again. "Because you've created something authentic. And because I was wrong about you, Victoria. I underestimated your vision and your determination. I'd like the opportunity to be part of what you're building, to learn from you, frankly." The conversation that followed was one of the most surreal of my professional life. Richard Harrington, who had once been my superior, was now earnestly trying to convince me to give him a chance. We discussed his specific skills, how he might fit into our team, and his salary expectations, which were significantly lower than what he'd been making at GreenTech. "I'll need to discuss this with my team," I said, as we prepared to leave. "We make major decisions collaboratively." He nodded. "I understand. And Victoria? Regardless of your decision, I want you to know I was wrong to discourage you. What you've accomplished deserves respect." Back at the office, I called a meeting with our core team to discuss the unexpected application. Opinions were mixed. "His experience could be valuable," Elena pointed out, "and he already understands the industry." Marcus was more skeptical. "But can he adapt to our culture? From what you've told us, he's used to a traditional corporate environment." After much debate, we decided to invite Richard for a formal interview with the entire team. It was our standard process for any potential hire, and it would give everyone a chance to evaluate whether he could truly fit into GreenChain's collaborative culture. The interview was scheduled for the following week. In the meantime, we received exciting news. Our pitch to a National Association of Organic Food Producers had been accepted, potentially opening doors to dozens of new clients across the country. "This is exactly why we need someone focused on business development," I told the team as we celebrated. "We're growing faster than expected." The day of Richard's interview arrived. He appeared nervous, a state I'd never seen him in before, as he presented his ideas for GreenChain's expansion strategy to our team. He answered tough questions about his management philosophy and how he would handle being in a supporting role rather than a leadership position. When he left, we debated for nearly 2 hours. Despite some reservations, we ultimately decided to offer him a 6-month contract position focusing specifically on business development for our national expansion. When I called to give him the news, his relief was palpable. "Thank you for this opportunity, Victoria. I won't let you down." "I'm counting on that," I replied. "And Richard? Just so we're clear, at GreenChain, we value collaboration over hierarchy. Everyone's ideas matter, regardless of their title or experience level." "Understood," he said. "I'm ready to learn a new way of working." Richard joined our team the following Monday. The adjustment wasn't without challenges. He occasionally slipped into his old authoritative habits, and some team members were initially hesitant to challenge him directly. But he was genuinely trying, and over time, he proved himself valuable, securing meetings with potential clients who might otherwise have been out of our reach. By December, GreenChain had expanded to serve clients in California, Oregon, and Colorado, with plans to move eastward in the new year. We'd grown to a team of 12, with a small satellite office opening in Portland. On the anniversary of my last day at GreenTech, I stayed late at the office, reflecting on the whirlwind year. My phone buzzed with a text from Allison. "Don't tell me you're still working. Come celebrate. 1 year of being your own boss." I smiled and texted back that I'd meet her in 30 minutes. As I gathered my things, I noticed Richard was also still there, focused intently on his computer. "Heading out?" he asked, looking up. "Meeting Allison for a celebratory drink? It's been exactly 1 year since I left GreenTech." He nodded thoughtfully. "Best decision you ever made, I'd say." "No argument here." I paused at the door. "You know, when you laughed at my little software dream during that review, it almost made me doubt myself. And now I work for you," he said with a self-deprecating smile. "Life has a sense of humor." "That it does. See you tomorrow, Richard." As I stepped out into the cool Seattle night, I felt a profound sense of satisfaction. The path had been challenging, filled with unexpected turns and obstacles I couldn't have predicted. But standing on the other side, I wouldn't change a thing. My little software dream had become a thriving reality, proving that sometimes the biggest risk is not taking one at all. And as for Richard, well, his presence at GreenChain served as a daily reminder that no one, not even those in positions of authority, can define what you're capable of achieving. Only you can do that.